Happy Devil's Thursday. This is the State of the Fan Address, episode 352, titled Peace Out, Jeremy. I'm your host, Sam Wu, here with PucksandPitchforks.com editor-in-chief Nick Villano, as we're streaming live on Facebook Live, YouTube Live, X Live, Twitch, and now on Instagram Live on the Let's Go Devils Network, coming to you live from the Primetime Radio Studios, both North and South Jersey, covering the Garden State, talking about your New Jersey Devils. Nick, I've been all over the world in the past 48 hours. There was a parade in New York. There was lots of things going on in the world. And the assistant coach, Jeremy, leaves.
I was trying to think of something a little bit more clever, like Jeremy Colliton, Jeremy Colliton. It wasn't coming out well. But yeah, Jeremy Colliton. I don't think he was shown the door. It sounds like he left on his own volition. I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe Sonny Maeda and Sheldon Keefe said that after they moved Sergei Brelin to a different role and let go Dave Rogalski, they said that was it. It sounded like Shaw and Colliton were going to come back and they were going to figure it out from there. Now, I need to remind you, Sheldon Keefe is already working with a smaller staff than Lindy Ruff. He had one fewer coach on the bench with him. You have to remember that Brelin filled a role up top. I don't think they ever replaced that role. I believe staffs are usually like 6 coaches. The Devils currently have 2. Right? Am I missing anybody? It's just him and Shaw, right?
Seems like it.
So I don't know what the move is. You know, a lot of times what you'll do is you'll sometimes they'll promote the AHL coach, which is what Vegas did when they said goodbye to John Tortorella. I had to really look because again I wasn't paying attention to this because it just happened, but there were a good amount of fired coaches. There's Seattle let go of a couple good coaches. There's a couple guys out there, guys and girls actually. The female coach in Seattle was actually really good at her job, so she's somebody I wouldn't mind to bring in. Is it Jessica Campbell?
Yeah.
She was really good at her job. That's the only one that's like coming off the top of my head. What's his face? Who's the guy who won the first Sidney Crosby Cup? Oh, what the heck's his name? He coached Buffalo after that. I don't know. There's a couple guys out there. Did Woodcroft get a job?
I don't think so.
He might go back to Anaheim though, so that's probably out the door. There's a couple guys out there that are interesting. Actually, let me look at the
Bilesma.
List of,
it says NJ 1525.
Bilesma. He's a pretty good assistant coach, bad head coach. Pretty good assistant coach.
When you said Crosby Cup, I thought that was some tournament. I didn't know what you were talking about. So I could have answered that, but sorry. I'm off my game. I just got off of like a big road trip. So anyway.
Would Chris Knobloch take an assistant job for a year? I don't think he would. I think he would say no. But I would ask. I would call him up and say, what are you up to? I think Dean Evanson is a defensive coach. But you also want to look at like.
Thank you, NJ Devil 1525.
Couple of interesting AHL coaches, like Todd Nelson. And these guys might be waiting for like head coaching jobs or opportunities. But they got guy from the Hershey Bears, JD Forrest, who's the guy in Wilkes-Barre. I think he's still there. He's only 42 years old, but he's been there since 2020. I think, he's been there a while. But he's a guy to keep a look at. There's a couple of guys. Listen, like, I think Scott Gomez is an interesting name. He's head coach at a very minor league team right now. I don't know if he takes like that Colliton role because you really want a good offensive coordinator, but he's a guy I would bring on the staff. I know you always look at the ex-Devil situation, you're kind of a little wary, but if you're putting him in a role that like Breland had, I like that. Like an associate coach or whatever it would be, like a guy who can run practice and really teach guys good habits and things like that. I think I like Gomez for that. Yeah, again, I need to do a little bit more research on this, but those are the guys off the top of my head. Elias would have been an interesting name, but he just took the job as Czechia general manager, so I don't think he's going to be up for that. There's a lot of guys out there. There's a lot of guys that I think would be super interesting to come over to the NHL and do the job. And here's the deal: is it happened now? It's not ideal for it to happen now, but it's much better than July or August, right? When all the other coaches have been hired. Pretty much all the teams that hired new head coaches are still looking to fill out their staffs. I think Peter Laviolette in Los Angeles just hired his first coach. I think he brought in, I can't remember his name, but so a lot of these people are still available. Who knows what's going to happen with Vegas, with the new head coach. I assume they're going to try to keep the rest of the staff, but, there might be some hurt feelings that the AHL coach just got the job instead of one of the assistants. So, people might leave there. There's a lot that can happen. I don't think this looks great for the Devils because it sounds like Colliton's getting a job out of hockey. And maybe this is a situation where he lost the passion, but there was kind of a lot of that last year under Keefe, right?
Do you actually believe that he's leaving to pursue other business opportunities?
That would be a weird thing to lie about and really easily confirmable really fast.
Yeah. I don't know. It's just sometimes I don't trust the Devils with their spin.
It was
on
a
the
strange
things.
press release. It was like a line.
Yeah.
It seemed like there was some hard feelings. I think that it was abrupt.
Nintendo Wii is asking, thank you for the super chat, would you take Torts as an associate coach?
I think that the Devils are just going to keep an eye on Torts all season.
That's
Torts
good.
he's their the emergency pull, the fire alarm.
And why don't you think Torts stayed in Vegas?
He wanted to stay.
Oh, they didn't want him. I thought he stepped down.
Nope.
Oh.
Nope. They said, thank you for your services. So Torts' contract, apparently, I don't know how this part works, but this is what the reports say. He was working under his Flyers contract for Vegas. His Flyers contract just ended. So they'd have to give him a new contract. They didn't want to do that. They felt like they had the head coach in waiting, and they just hired him. Torts wanted to keep coaching the Knights, but I don't think he's desperate to coach. right? I think he wants the right situation. He's what, 60 something?
He's been around the league for a while.
And then you just hear like today that Mike Babcock's coming back to the league, and it's just, man, a lot of these teams will overlook everything to hire a coach. You got Babcock and Quenneville are back in this league, man. That's odd. It's odd to me. But here's the deal. Babcock might get a lot of Edmonton Oilers team this year, but I think they flame out in the playoffs. He's like the mean version of Tom Thibodeau. He demands that you go above and beyond and just makes you work harder than everybody in game 23 of the season. And that eventually, like, you know, I covered Press Virginia when Bob Huggins ran the Press, and they kept losing in the first and second round of the tournament because they were fried. They were shot by the time that they got to the end of the season. And when you run guys ragged the whole, like, for these long seasons, by the time you get to the big stage, you can't step up because you don't have it in you. You don't have the energy. So I look at all these new coaches and like this old school way of thinking, and it doesn't work anymore because you're working with like supreme skill and talent. And I think just with their regimens and all the stuff that they're taking, I just think it's putting more pressure on bodies. And you know, I think of the same thing with Keefe, right? Keefe's really hard on his guys. I don't think he takes it to that level though. But you have to question it, right? When the Devils got knocked out in the first round and everybody got injured that year. Like nobody survived the season. Last year was just a wreck. Nobody wanted to play for him. And then the Leafs teams famously got knocked out in the first round every year. You know, Sheldon's Keefe system, this old school system that's wearing his team down. And now when you look at the assistants, the thing about Jeremy Colliton is he gave Jeremy Colliton all of the power. I don't know if Colliton was calling lines, but I know Colliton was calling plays. Right? Every time there was a set play, Colliton had the clipboard. Every time there was a power play and they called timeout, Colliton had the clipboard. Every time, there was a stoppage in play and Jack Hughes or Nico Hischier or Jess Brett went over, he was the guy giving the directive, right? Keefe dealt with the referees. Keefe dealt with, off-ice officials. He dealt with the video team, it sounded like. But Colliton dealt with the play-by-play. So the coaching style was very odd last year. I didn't like it at all. I advocated for a change. Whether it wasn't key, I thought it needed to be key for Colliton. It just wasn't working. When they didn't get rid of him, get rid of Colliton, I was like, okay, I guess. And people point out, like, the power play was good. Look at their percentage. I mean, there's certain times where you have to look past the statistics. The power play looked bad most of the time. They scored sometimes. Looked bad most of the time. They were going long stretches where they had no power play at all. And in the playoffs against Carolina, the power play, I think, scored 0 goals. And that's why they lost, really. The special teams is the reason why the Devils lost that series, more than anything else. Even more than injuries, even more than the talent disparity. The Devils couldn't score on the power play, and they allowed power play goals to the Hurricanes. But you have to upgrade, right? And that was the conversation with Keefe. We see these guys who are getting hired this cycle. Jim Hiller went to the Leafs. It was a bad cycle. Right, you had Laviolette go to the Kings, didn't want him. You had Hiller go to the Leafs, didn't want him. You had Babcock go to the Oilers, didn't want him. But Knobloch is still out there. Knobloch's the guy I'm knocking on his door and be like, listen, man, why'd you come here and get your Andrew Burnett on and go get a head coaching job after 1 year here. And I think that's the conversation you have to have. The problem is he's getting paid, right? He's getting paid massive amounts of money to not be a head coach. Does he just want to sit on that mystique? Maybe. And just like let it like fervent and let people come to him in the middle of the season when they want to do a replacement. Maybe. But if I'm him, because that's what DeBoer did, right? DeBoer got fired last offseason, and he took the Islanders job like at the end of last season.
Yep.
Yeah, so I could see Knobloch doing that, but I would just talk to him and be like, hey, you got to leave in the middle of the season. You got an opportunity. You got it, like, because here's the thing is that's why I would bring Gomez and Knobloch. Listen, I would. The problem is that you can't outpay the Oilers, so you have to, like, sell him on the situation. But the situation is Jack Hughes and Nico Hischier and Jesper Bratt and Timo Meier. Like, if he could come in and be the reclamation project for Timo Meier, he'd get any head coaching job he wants. So I think, was it Chris Knobloch was in the Rangers system, right? He coached the Hartford Wolfpack.
That's correct.
So I don't think they're going to fire Mike Sullivan, but he's used to this area. Connecticut's not that far from here. So that's, I don't know. That was a long-winded thought process for Colliton. It went in a lot of different directions. Do you have any it doesn't seem like you had much of an opinion on Colliton?
Not much of an opinion. I thought the news headline and the press release was a little weird.
Bizarre.
Is it they fired him, but they didn't want to ruin him, so they said, "Oh, he's pursuing other business opportunities."
No, I think he burned them. That's how I read it. I read it. He burned them because they came out and said they were keeping him. He burned them. That's how I read it.
Yeah, and that's not a good sign either.
No, when coaches are burning you, there's a lack of respect there.
Yeah.
It's one thing to get an opportunity, but you have to have that opportunity lined up by June 1st. Right? Like, you need to make that known. And, again, there's a lack of respect there. And it is what it is. Here's what I will say, Sam. I do think this hire is important. I think you kind of want to hire a Knobloch type. You want to hire a guy that's going to put a little bit of pressure on Keefe to give it his all this season. I don't think Torts does offense like that, so I don't think you could do it with Torts, but I think Knobloch would be the perfect guy. Again, it might be impossible, but I think Knobloch would be the perfect guy. I think did we fill all the head coaching jobs? I don't know. But if that's the case and he's left out in the cold, I would give him a call and say, "Hey, what do you think of this? What do you think of this opportunity? You saw what Brunette did with this core. I think you have a similar situation on your hands, and you jump all over it."
I don't think he would come to New Jersey.
You might be right, but you got to try.
I mean, if you're again, something was weird about this departure. And if you're an outsider looking in and you would be one of those candidates, I question, why did somebody just suddenly leave like that? Maybe he didn't like the direction of the team. Maybe my conspiracy theories all along is, it's just going to be the same old Devils, just different GM.
I don't know. I mean, this definitely doesn't have anything to do with Maeda. Like, You
It has
haven't
nothing
even
to do
gotten
with Maeda. I've said all along. I've said all along from day one that, and I'm concerned. I like Maeda, but I'm concerned, and I at one point did like Tom Fitzgerald, but I'm just concerned that there's a higher being that really does call the shots.
Oh, I get it, but I'll give you that. Well, first of all, here's why I disagree with you to a point. I think we both have information that there's some truth to that. Can I tell you what I'm thinking?
Of course you can. It's your podcast.
Do you want to know when I think that started?
What started?
The oversight.
Let me know.
I think that started when Harris bought the Commanders. Or no, I think it started when Harris tried to buy the Broncos, which I think was like 22.
Mm-hmm.
I think because Fitzgerald got the president's job in 23 after they made the playoffs. I think around there is when there was the split. Everybody's heard that there's this rumor that they kind of like Harris Blitzer Sports and Entertainment still exists, but Harris focuses on his. Blitzer focuses on his. Like Blitzer focuses on the Devils and the Guardians. Harris focuses on the 76ers and the Commanders. And that's kind of how it goes. You don't see them together ever. I haven't seen Harris show up for a Devils thing in years. And Harris was there when Sherrill got fired. And Harris was there when Fitzgerald got hired, I believe. And Harris is there for the playoffs in 23. And that was the last time I've seen him that I can remember. Can you think of a time that you've seen Harris since the 23 playoffs?
Well, I've seen him in the owner's box.
Have you?
Yeah, at least once or twice, but not as often. I will say that.
So maybe just like
and his kids, and there's a couple of his kids actually look exactly like him, by the way. So I could have been mistaken. I could have been mistaken. They actually look almost identical. They're like little Joshua Harrises.
But I think when that happened and Blitzer kind of took a more prominent role, he had the role. Like Blitzer was at those press conferences too. But I think that they kind of each, instead of both making decisions, they kind of split the pot. And I don't see a ton of Blitzer at the Commanders games. I see some, not a ton. So I think that's what happened. I also think that's complicated. I don't think that the Harris Blitzer Sports Emporium owns the Commanders. I think Josh Harris owns the Commanders. I think there's like some complication there, and then Blitzer's like a partial owner. But anyway, again, I'm not trying to. This is too far down the rabbit hole. I see Blitzer possibly though giving Maeda some rope. Just at least this offseason. Go build your team. We want to give you a shot to show us what you can do. We hired you for a reason. So I think you'll see a little bit less of that. Right? Where it's like that seems like it's coming from above. I will tell you this because and here's the thing, Sam. Fitzgerald became a different GM at that point. Do you remember that?
Kind of.
He couldn't pull the trigger. He could not put for the guy who made the biggest trade in history with Timo Meier, the most pieces to get that Timo Meier trade done, and to beat everybody else to it. And I think he did it in January, so like a month before the trade deadline. That guy is not the guy who traded for Markstrom. That guy is not the guy that gave Markstrom a 2-year extension. That guy is not the guy that didn't trade for Quinn Hughes. That's a guy who just kept failing to pull the trigger or put himself in a position to fail over and over again. I don't see that happening here. And I want a quick pivot. Sam, do you have anything on that before I quick pivot?
Nope.
I want a quick pivot to Nico Hischier. I think this deal is done. That's my expectation. This deal is done. I would be floored if we go past July 5th. Floored. You know, let everybody eat their hot dogs and enjoy America 250, and then sign our Swiss king to rule over this nation for another. I don't think it's going to be 8 years. I think it's going to be 6, which I don't love, but it is what it is. Personally, I think it's going to be 6. Like 6 by 70. Yeah. A little over 11 is what I'm looking at. But that's just what I'm thinking.
That mid-range deal. That Kevin Weeks.
Yeah. I mean, 6 I wouldn't consider mid-range. But, like, when I heard mid-range, I thought it was going to be 3, and they were going to match them up to Hughes and just ruin our lives.
Which would be stupid.
Right. Very stupid. But I think it'll be 6. So which is 7 years of Heischer. Because remember, he's already signed for next year. So, and you'll get an additional salary cap rise before Fisher's contract hits the books. I think it's fine. It's a lot, but it's fine.
What are you thinking?
I'm just glad they're not going to trade him because you can't replace him. I think there will be at least one trade before the draft. That's my prediction. The Devils will make a trade before the draft.
Big one?
If I had to tell you, I'd say no. Like, relative. You know, like, they're not trading for Robert Thomas or Jason Robertson. But I think they're going to make a trade before the draft. I think, I think Maeda wants a 3rd-round pick. The Devils don't have one right now. I think the exception is if they do like a Nemitz for McTavish. Yep. Something like that could happen before the draft. I got to be honest, Sam, I don't love it. Like, a lot of people like McTavish. I don't. But I also don't love Nemitz. You know what I mean? Like, I've defended Nemitz a lot. But I kind of lost interest in doing it. I'm definitely afraid that the guy's just going to stare at the puck his whole career. The guy, like, I don't know. Maybe he needs to, like, see somebody about it. Because, like, he just, like, his controller turns off all the time. And he's just staring at the puck and, like, just going like this on his skates. And I don't love that. It's led to goals against, like, 6 or 7 times. I could count off the top of my head, and it's probably more. He's also nails in the clutch. Nails. And that's also hard. So, the question is, can a player be consistently clutch? Is that a thing? And if it isn't, can you fix the Xbox controller turning off all the time? Because if you can do B and he keeps A, he's a supreme player. But if he loses A and keeps B, he's an unplayable player. I think Nemitz has lost value since he's been drafted, which is crazy because he has numbers. But I also think that McTavish has as well. McTavish has had 17 goals last year. He had less than Dawson Mercer. So I think that needs to be said. But that's what I'm thinking, Sam. I think we covered everything. Was there anything else that you could think of that we didn't cover?
Well, we got the draft next week, don't we?
What day is that?
I have to look it up. Is it on Friday? Don't they do it on Fridays?
Mm-hmm. They usually do it or do they do it on Thursday and then Fridays? Or no, they usually do Saturday day too, right? Let me just double check.
I'm looking it up right now.
What's June 26th? Friday. You're right. Starts at 7.
Will the Devils trade up, trade down, trade the pick, use the pick?
I think they might trade up. I think they might. Guys are going to fall. And this is why I think guys are going to fall. The defensemen are intriguing. But there are some supremely skilled players that I see dropping. The two I want, Sam, are, I want Bjork. I think that's how you say his name is. Viga Bjork. And if not him, I want Tynan Lawrence. But that's because that's where they're falling. People like Wyatt Cullen, he'd be fine. People like Elfin Belchitz. I like Elfin Belchitz, actually. He's huge. Like, people are talking about Oscar Hemming. I don't want Oscar Hemming. I'd rather have Belchitz. Belchitz's season ended last year because he broke his collarbone. But, dude, 6'5", 225 pounds, I think. And uses it. Right? He's all of that. And he plays like Bastion, but with skill. Right? Bastion played in front of the net, but he didn't use his I shouldn't say he plays like Bastion, that's the wrong term. He plays like the way you wanted Bastion to play. Right? You'd put Bastion in front of the net and he'd just be big. But Belchitz will get in the goalie's way. He'll push people around. He'll set himself up for a screen. He wins board battles. He does a lot of things right. But he's a distinct third. Hemming would be. I don't love the bust potential with Hemming. Hemming scares the heck out of me. I got to be honest. There's a skill deficit that scares me a little. And he was overwhelmed in college last year. And people say it's because he was injured. Okay. I didn't love what I've seen so far. He's not the guy I would want. But yeah, listen, there's a lot to like about this draft. Draft is next week. We got another podcast before then. We'll do a draft preview on the podcast next week.
All right. Maybe there's more news to come by next week.
That's all I got, Sam.
All right. So, got any plugs?
Yeah, pucks at pitchworks.com. JP Gambatees wrote about Colliton right before the podcast. You saw that up on the on the good old website. I'm going to write about Chris Knobloch.
All right.
Because I think it's a good story. I'm going to write about another one. Sim, I'm a little worried. This Mike Babcock thing. I am counting my chickens before they hatch, but I think this was step 10 in pushing Connor McDavid to the New York Rangers. I think this is the next destination.
Yeah. There's got to be some kind of strategy here. Bringing in
Apparently
Babcock.
He wanted Babcock, but he's going to regret his decision. He's a player. Doesn't know what he's talking about. But I think that I think by this time next year, or by like opening night 27, 28, I think McDavid is on the Rangers.
Well, this is what I think. Here's my conspiracy theory on this whole Babcock mess. Me personally, I think Edmonton wanted Bruce Cassidy.
Sure.
And that whole thing with Vegas, I mean, it's within Vegas Golden Knights' rights. Because, you know.
Weird right, though. It's a weird right. Well,
yeah, but it is an opponent in the same conference. And, you know, I'm not saying it's right or wrong. I'm just saying that they're enforcing a contract that both parties signed. You know.
Yeah, this is on the NHL more than it is on the Vegas.
So I'm thinking that Edmonton's like feeling like they're getting the shot. Oh yeah, well we're just going to embarrass you and get this guy because either way, we think we can win with Babcock and we'll make you look bad.
Babcock wasn't a good coach in Toronto. And he got driven out of town in Columbus. We'll see.
You know, but it's Toronto, though.
I know, man, but I don't know. I don't know. He was the last. That was like the last good time. Good time for Detroit, right? Was when Babcock was there.
Yep.
Yeah, so maybe. I don't know. But yeah, so go to puckspitchworks.com.
Alrighty. Well, I want to thank all of you tuning in. We'll be back, I guess, this upcoming Sunday. Plus, we got State of the Fan address next week, the draft, and suddenly we're talking about free agency. We'll have it covered. So thank you. Till next time, let's go Devils.